Hi, my name is Linda Miller-Dunleavy, Communication Disorders Special Ed. I'll first just start out by telling you that this is kind of need to know for everyone. Some of you already know, some of you may not. It's not specific to anything I teach, but I have spent the last 33 years of my life as an advocate for students with special needs, and my passion is working with both children and adults with special needs. Half the PowerPoint is, if someone at my table can just show one of those little, I brought a bunch of brochures from the Office of Educational Accessibility, which is what our disability services people are calling their office now. And these are brochures that I'll have at the round table this afternoon, so anyone need those for FYI, I have that available. The first 10 slides of this PowerPoint are not up here. They are basically the brochure and kind of a delineation of the web page. So what you need to know on the web page is there. Guidelines for documentation, how to help students who have not yet found themselves connected to the disability services staff. All of the documentation is for every disability possible, including medical disability that may be a transient issue, psychological disability that could be based on trauma or permanent mental health issues, temporary mobility impairment for any athlete or anyone who's had a recovery, use of mobility transportation such as golf carts and so forth. So that's all for you on the web page. Also forms for the student, the process to follow, how to register for classes with accommodations letters. So please make yourself, and there's a student handbook, a faculty handbook, new guidelines for brand new faculty. So if you're a new faculty, there's like a little blurb just for you guys. And then of course documentation guidelines. Kate Broderick is acting director. Beth Ann Dickey, who was my contact, is the acting assistant director. And so that's the info. That's again on that beautiful little brochure. They're going to be moving, and I can't remember where they said their new office is going to be, but right now it's right across from Starbucks at Webb Center. Where are they going to be, Sandy? Oh, that's Success Center. That's right. She said, and they were very excited about that because she said that they're going to have a plusher office. My PowerPoint for you, my information for you is based on the possibility, the probability of students with disabilities in your class at the university. We call them high incidence disabilities because they are the most prevalent versus someone with more multiple disability, less likely to be found at this level of school. So those are the ones I'm going to address. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, specific learning disability, autism spectrum disorder, particularly the Asperger's, students with Asperger's within that spectrum. Physical disabilities, I'm not going to go over that today, but I just want you to know that that's included. And again, psychological, mental disabilities, and any really other that qualifies under American with Disabilities Act. So my three that I'm going to go over is ADHD, SLD, and most particularly attention to the Asperger's. That is my area right now that I spend the most time with, and as an advocate, I help parents with special needs, and most of my clients are Asperger's or autistic. It's kind of interesting, Beth, I couldn't get any specific stats from her. She just didn't have them easily available that day, but this semester we had 543 students who are actively attending classes who registered through the accessibility office. But by national stats, we should have approximately 10% of the student body. And the problem is that students are hesitant to register or are just now coming into realizing that they have either a learning disability and or an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Those are the two that kind of become more visible as students get through higher levels of schooling and are sometimes first-time diagnoses, first-time found to be eligible for accommodations at the college level, freshman, sophomore, and so forth. Most of the students that come to us with Asperger's syndrome have already been diagnosed and probably have been for years. Okay, so that's kind of the difference. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the first one I'm going to talk about. There's three types: inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity. You can have a combination of all, one by itself, two together, and there's specific criteria. If you're a school-age child, 3 to 5% of school-age children usually can qualify for ADHD. About 60% of those maintain their ADHD disorder into adulthood. And so that's our population. 1 to 5% of all of adults have an ADHD type of deficit, whether it's inattention, hyperactivity, or impulsivity. It affects females. Males are at higher rate than females, but as the ratio is kind of evens out in the adult life, and we see lots and lots of girls that are coming to me thinking, I think I have ADHD, I can't concentrate, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't, on and on. So next we'll look at the characteristics that are kind of generic. All right, so these are the things you may see in your classroom, freshmen as well as non-traditional students. In fact, I had a 62-year-old man that just passed his comps and sent a bunch of thank you letters from the distance world, and he was diagnosed in his 40s with ADHD, and it's what helped him get his master's degree, to be diagnosed and get some help. Chronic lateness, forgetfulness, you'll see they're pretty much up here, very anxious about the things that we would normally be able to kind of parcel out and be kind of calm. So low self-esteem, most of these kids will actually feel stupid, act as if they feel something's not going on right with them. Some of these adults carry employment problems throughout their entire life. Some will have controlling and have anger issues. A lot of it's just plain old frustration with themselves and their kind of inability to perform at the level that they probably feel they should. You can see some of the others, impulsivity. The younger generation, freshmen, sophomores, they tend to have substance abuse issues. And if they're coming to school for the first time and know they have ADHD, they'll be the freshmen that don't know how to time. A perfect example with the students here about the time management and the academic success study skills. They're the ones that need it very badly. Mood swings, depression, there can be a whole array of problems, of course, that are listed here. Relationship problems, sometimes these kids get themselves into very poor relationships where there's problems with both aggression and violence and kind of control. Students with learning disabilities is our next population, and this population of students usually will come to college knowing they have a learning disability. And they have one or more psychological processes that are involved in understanding or using language, includes learning to think, listen, speak, read, write, spell, or do math. So across the board, they have issues. And I've only had one student that was diagnosed as a sophomore after pretty much failing her entire life and adding 6 extra semesters to her undergraduate degree before I said, why don't you, and because we really can't kind of make that happen. They have to self-initiate, self-disclose. We can't say, go get, drugs, and go get, diagnosed. But I just said, listen, why don't you go and talk to blank? And the accessibility office kind of helped her get referred and get tested and so forth. Some students with learning disabilities will have problems with reading, will have problems with social skills, will have problems with math. I mean, it really kind of depends. They can also have the whole spectrum of disability. Some of the things that these students benefit from as instructors, teachers, professors are very direct instruction, step 1, step 2, step 3. That's why the syllabus is such a great kind of agreement, because they understand what that means, what the guidelines on, timelines, calendars, guided notes, any type of visuals, as Michelle talked about. That was perfect for these kids. They love it, these students. Mnemonics. Some of these students do really, really well in essay exams because they literally create their own little cheat sheet of mnemonics for memorization, recall, and so forth. We also teach in special ed, we call it strategy instruction, but we teach direct learning strategies to this population so that they learn how to learn how to think about thinking, think about learning, and are involved in their executive functioning, metacognition, so that they're kind of thinking a lot more than they've ever thought about how to do what they need to do to be successful. The last population is the ASD. We call that autistic spectrum disorder, but I'm going to talk more just about the Asperger syndrome population. We have the highest number ever at the university. We have 34 students registered this year with Asperger's at ODU. And these students are have a developmental disability that affects verbal, nonverbal communication and social interaction. And when they come to us, they're usually very successful academically in that they have the skills intellectually, but they're also they bomb out at everything else. Social skills for them is their most impaired area, as you can see, and their inability to understand how to be successful socially, how to sit next to someone, how to ask to sit next to someone, how to borrow something from someone, how to ask for help, how to ask for directions, on and on and on. The characteristics are very specific: impaired social relationships, both either or, communication or language deficit, varying levels of intellectual functioning. Usually if they come to the university, they're going to be at least have some intellectual ability and have been successful with regular diplomas and so forth, because that's what's happening. We're getting this very kind of almost high ability level academic with practically no ability to cope and to be a part of the university community. They usually are very ritualistic, stereotypic. I've had four students in my classes in the last couple of semesters, and they stand out. Yes, they look different. Yes, some of my students rolled their eyes behind their back. Yes, some of my students said after they left, what's he doing in here? So we do need to kind of create an atmosphere of embracing and kind of a safe, acceptance, because this population is unique. The components, the last slide I have is the components. We use what we call peer-mediated instruction, and Sandy Waters yesterday and a couple of the advisors talked about in the roundtable about using peers. This population would be so wonderfully involved if peers could mentor them, if peers could tutor them, if peers could just be buddies. And I know that's kind of a little elementary, but if we could connect with peers to help them through their life at ODU, we would have them be way more successful than they're capable of, than they can be right now. And we're losing them within the first 2 semesters because it's the involvement, not the academics. Resource for I just use a regular special ed text, and then that the actual office itself with the numbers and so forth that are available on the web page. Okay, thanks.